Good morning, everyone. I am Neil Lesser Giusantino, and I will be your teacher for today. So today we are going to discuss a very important topic in the field of physics, particularly in what we call as the optics. So we're going to discuss light as well as its reflective properties. So we're basically going to study light and reflection. So the purpose of this lecture is we should be able to answer the questions such as what is light as a part of electromagnetic spectrum? What is reflection? What are the implications or importance of reflection? And at the end of this activity, we're also going to have a diagram of reflection when it comes to the study of it in physics. When we talk about light, we are actually referring to what we call as the visible light. Because light is actually just a tiny part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So electromagnetic spectrum is actually a series of waves that does not need any medium to propagate. So they does not need any medium such as water, air. They can travel there, but even in vacuum of space, they can still propagate in that region. So in the electromagnetic spectrum, we can see that as we go from left to right, we are actually decreasing the wavelength of the light, but we are actually increasing as well the frequency of the light. So we can actually say that they are inversely proportional. When we increase the wavelength of the light, we are actually decreasing the frequency, and when we decrease the wavelength of the light, we are actually increasing the frequency. And by increasing the frequency, we are also increasing the energy of the light. So as we go from left to right of the electromagnetic spectrum, the frequency increases, but the energy of the electromagnetic spectrum or the electromagnetic wave increases as well. Light, which is a wave, can also interact with ordinary matter. So by interaction, one of the interaction of light is by emitting of light by a matter. For example, a star, when it have a nuclear fusion inside in its core, it can emit light in its surface. Another interaction of light with ordinary matter is that light can be absorbed. So for example, in plants, they absorb light to create their own food through the process called photosynthesis. So light can also be reflected, which is actually going to be our topic later on. And light can also be refracted, so it can bend when it goes from one medium to another medium. For example, when it goes from air toward the water, you can actually see that the light is actually being refracted. Reflection is a throwing back of light or other waves by a body or a surface. Reflection is a very important phenomenon in physics. So because of reflection, we can actually see ourselves in the mirror. We can also see everyday objects because of this reflection. And in night, the moon actually reflects the light coming from the sun. So even without the sun, even at night, we also have the light coming from the moon, and that is because of the process of reflection. We have here an example of a light being reflected by a mirror. So we have here the incident ray. The incident ray is actually the ray of light coming from a source. And when it is reflected, we are now going to call that as the reflected ray. So we also have here the normal or the normal line. The normal line is actually a line that is perpendicular to the surface. Particularly in this example, the surface is the mirror. So in physics, when you encounter the word normal, that is actually means perpendicular. So in this case, normal line is a line that is perpendicular to the surface. So The angle formed between a normal line and the incident ray is what we call as the incidence angle or the angle of incidence. On the other hand, the angle formed between the normal line and the reflected ray is what we call as the reflected angle or the angle of incidence. In the law of reflection, these two is actually the same or always equal. So we can say that the incident angle is always equal to the reflected angle. So let's see if you really understand the lesson. So here is a pop quiz for you. So I've given you a diagram of a light that is being reflected. So just posted this video and complete the diagram below. So, did you get the correct answer? Very good. So that's all. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or any suggestions, just comment down below.